Okay, good. So, hello. Today we're going to talk about a scenario post-TAVI. So this is a patient in her 70s. She just had a TAVI 4 days ago. And on the ward, we were noticing a prolongation in PR interval. But here, I would like to point out this phenomena where we have a QRS alternans. And I want to point out this narrowish QRS, a longer QRS, a narrow, broader, narrow, broader, narrow, broader. So what's going on here? This patient has had a TAVI and pre-TAVI had a normal PR interval of about 180 milliseconds. Post-TAVI, she had a PR that prolonged to 220 milliseconds with the QRS approaching a left bundle branch block appearance with a QRS duration of 140 milliseconds. And as she comes to the pacing lab to be paced, she displays this alternans phenomena. So let's try and understand this alternans phenomena and really highlight a point that is quite important post-TAVI. So this is one of the traces that we see in the EP lab. And what we can do in the EP lab is we can measure very accurately the PR interval. And so here we switch to this view where we can see that on this 100 speed view, this is the broad complex and this is the narrow complex. You can roughly see that that is the case. On the broad complex, the PR interval is 206 milliseconds from the onset of P to the start of the QRS complex. And on the narrow QRS, the PR interval has in fact lengthened. And I'll explain to you what this means in a second and point out one of the very confusing things with an ECG post-TAVI that apparently shows a narrowing of the QRS with a resolution of left bundle, but with prolonging of the PR interval, which normally indicates trouble is ahead. So I'll ask you to now focus on this diagram. We have a P wave originating from the sinoatrial node, which arrives here at both bundles. Now this conducts normally simultaneously through both bundles. Now what does it mean to have a bundle branch block? Now we think of bundle branch block, in this case left bundle, as the bundle being completely blocked and therefore conduction needing to go through entirely down the right bundle. And this gives you in lead V1 the sign of a left bundle branch block pattern, which looks typically like William in the famous William and Marrow of a left bundle branch block. Okay, so in V1 you get a negative deflection, and if this is V1, this is what we might get. Now the thing is with TAVI, we sometimes see this phenomena where if, for example, this interval is 220 from the onset of P to the left bundle QRS complex, what we can sometimes see is the complex starts to narrow again, for example. Does this generally mean that life is getting better, conducting system is improving? No, because if you watch the PR interval, this sometimes expands outwards. And so if this goes to 250 from 220, but you get a paradoxical shortening in the QRS complex, all this means, when we come back to this signal, is that you're in deeper trouble because the right bundle is now starting to slow. And how slow does it go? It goes so slow that it matches the time of the left bundle, which was already slow and not blocked. And so when you have slow conduction in the left and the right, and therefore distal to the slow conduction, you've got rapid conduction thereafter, you resolve the left bundle. And so you no longer have a left bundle, but what is the time taken to get from the SA node to the point of resolution? This is longer. So when this is longer, you have an apparent resolution left bundle, but with a prolonging PR interval, this is not a good sign, not good. And therefore, instead of saying, left bundle's resolved, can we discharge? No, you think, may need to pace. So we come back to this patient and we come back to try and explain this dynamically in a wonderful example of this occurring, where you get a narrow and a broad alternating pattern. And actually it's proven now, if you switch over to this view, that this is exactly what happens. With the broad left bundle, you have a PR interval of 206 milliseconds. And in fact, when you prolong the PR interval to just 20 milliseconds longer, you have a apparent narrowing in the bundle. But this simply means that the right bundle is getting compromised so that it delays it, such that the right and left bundle are now simultaneously activating. So in summary, if a left bundle pushes out and becomes normalized and your PR goes out, it's not a good sign. Don't be reassured, and always consider pacing and discussing it with your EP team. Consider pacing if left bundle normalizes with PR going up. That's the lesson.